There is a moment every soldier dreams about during deployment. The moment you step off that plane and breathe American air again. The moment you drive through your neighborhood and see your house. Your home, the place you fought to protect. I had dreamed about that moment for 11 months. 11 months in Afghanistan, 11 months of dust and danger and homesickness. And when that moment finally came, when I finally turned onto my street after 11 months away, there was a light on in my living room, a light I did not turn on. A car in my driveway I did not own, and a woman I had never seen in my life standing at my kitchen window washing dishes in my house. I sat in my car and I could not move, I could not breathe. I had survived 11 months in a war zone, I had come home alive, and someone was living in my house. What happened next was the most devastating and ultimately the most powerful fight of my entire life, and it did not involve a single weapon. My name is not important. What is important is that I am a United States Army Staff Sergeant. I had served 3 previous deployments before Afghanistan. And before every deployment, I made sure everything at home was taken care of. Before leaving for Afghanistan, I sat down and I organized everything. I set up automatic payments for every single bill. My mortgage, my utilities, my HOA dues of $280 per month, everything automated, everything scheduled. My neighbor Sandra, a retired teacher who had lived next door for 20 years, agreed to check on the house once a week, water the plants, collect the mail, make sure everything was fine. I hugged Sandra goodbye, I locked my front door, I left for 11 months to serve my country. I trusted that my home would be waiting for me when I came back. I was wrong. 4 months into my deployment, my automatic payment system had a banking error. My bank account was temporarily frozen due to a fraud alert on an unrelated transaction. The freeze lasted 11 days. During those 11 days, my HOA dues payment of $280 failed to process. Just one payment, one single month. My bank resolved the issue within 11 days and every subsequent payment went through perfectly, but the Maplewood Ridge HOA had already acted. Within 30 days of that single missed payment, they sent a violation notice to my house. Sandra collected the mail and, not knowing what to do with an official legal notice, she placed it on my kitchen counter inside the house through the spare key I had given her. She did not know to contact anyone about it. She thought I would handle it when I got back. The HOA sent a second notice, then a third, then they filed a lien on my property. And then, while I was 11 months deep in Afghanistan, they initiated foreclosure proceedings on my home. 4 months later, a judge signed off on the foreclosure. My house was auctioned for $62,000 below market value to a real estate investor named Craig Hollies, and Craig Hollies moved in immediately. My transport landed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky on a Tuesday morning. I had not slept in 36 hours. I was exhausted and emotional, and all I wanted was to get home. My neighbor Sandra had no idea what had happened with the house. She had stopped going inside after the first few months. She had no idea Craig Hollies was living there. Nobody had told her. Nobody had told anyone who might have reached me. I drove the familiar roads toward my neighborhood, feeling that warmth building in my chest that every soldier knows, the warmth of coming home. I turned onto my street. I saw my house. The lights were on. There was an unfamiliar car in my driveway, and there was a woman I had never seen standing at my kitchen window. I pulled over immediately. I sat in my car for 10 minutes trying to understand what I was seeing. Then I walked up to my own front door and I knocked on it. A man answered, Craig Hollies. Standing in my living room, surrounded by his furniture, his photographs on my walls, his life built inside my home, he looked at me like I was a stranger, because to him I was. Craig Hollies showed me the deed, legal, stamped, signed by a judge. He had purchased my home through a legitimate foreclosure auction. He had no idea I was a deployed soldier. He had no idea the foreclosure had happened because of an 11-day banking freeze on a $280 payment. He was not the villain of this story. He was just a man who had bought a house at auction. The villain was the Maplewood Ridge HOA. I drove to a hotel that night. I sat on the edge of the bed in my uniform and I stared at the wall for a long time. I had just spent 11 months serving my country in Afghanistan. I had slept in the dirt. I had watched friends get hurt. I had done everything asked of me. And I had come home to find that while I was gone, my HOA had taken my house over one missed payment of $280 during an 11-day banking freeze. I picked up my phone and I called a military legal assistance attorney, and that attorney said 4 words that changed everything. Have you heard of SCRA? SCRA stands for the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act. It is a federal law specifically designed to protect active duty military members from exactly what had happened to me. Under the SCRA, no HOA and no lender can foreclose on a service member's property without a court order specifically accounting for their active duty status. The law requires that service members be notified through proper military channels. The law provides specific protections against exactly this situation. The Maplewood Ridge HOA had violated every single protection the SCRA provides. Their attorneys had either never checked my military status or had checked it and chosen to proceed anyway. Either way, what they had done was not just morally wrong, it was a federal crime. My attorney filed an emergency motion within 48 hours. A federal judge reviewed the case within 72 hours. And within 1 week of coming home from Afghanistan, a federal court issued an emergency order declaring the foreclosure of my property completely void and invalid. Craig Hollies was notified by court order that the sale of the property had been declared void. To his credit, Craig Hollies cooperated completely. He was angry at the HOA for putting him in this position, but he complied with the court timeline to vacate the property. The Maplewood Ridge HOA suddenly had a very serious legal problem. A federal SCRA violation carries enormous consequences. My attorney filed a civil lawsuit against the HOA board immediately. The Department of Justice was notified of the SCRA violation and opened their own investigation. 3 additional service members from other states came forward with similar stories against HOA organizations that had violated their SCRA protections. The case became national news. Military veteran organizations across the country rallied behind the story. News networks picked it up. Congress members called for investigations into HOA foreclosure practices against military families. The pressure was unlike anything the Maplewood Ridge HOA board had ever faced. Within 90 days, their legal team approached my attorney requesting a settlement. The settlement agreement was signed on a Friday afternoon. The Maplewood Ridge HOA was required to return my property immediately with all costs of restoration covered by them. They were required to pay me $420,000 in damages for illegal foreclosure, emotional distress, and legal fees. Every HOA board member who had voted to proceed with the foreclosure knowing I was on active duty was removed from their position permanently. The HOA was placed under court-supervised financial oversight for 5 years. The Department of Justice settlement with the HOA required them to implement mandatory SCRA training for all board members going forward and to audit every foreclosure action they had taken in the previous 10 years. Craig Hollies received full compensation for all his moving costs and temporary housing directly from the HOA as ordered by the court. And on a Saturday morning 6 weeks after coming home from Afghanistan, I carried my bags back through my own front door, into my own house. I stood in my living room and I just breathed. Sandra from next door brought over a casserole. She cried. I am not ashamed to say that I cried too. I want every person watching this to understand something important. The Servicemembers Civil Relief Act exists because Congress recognized that men and women who leave everything behind to serve this country deserve to come home to that everything still being there. The Maplewood Ridge HOA either did not know that law existed or did not care. Both possibilities are unacceptable. If you have a family member deployed right now, make sure their finances have a backup contact person who understands what to do if something goes wrong. Make sure someone who knows the law is watching out for them. And if you are a service member watching this, know your rights under the SCRA. Print them out. Give them to someone you trust. Because you should never have to fight a war on two fronts. I fought for this country for 11 months in Afghanistan, and then I had to fight for my own front door when I came home. I won both battles, but I should never have had to fight the second one. Subscribe right now because I have 11 more stories in my folder, and some of them will make this one look simple. Comment below, did you know the SCRA existed before watching this video?